Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'm going to cover the latest in the Brexit talks. Boris Johnson met with some senior officials in the EU to get the Brexit talks moving again. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, then please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So first of all, if you see the occasional plug, just ignore it. Now, essentially what's happened on the communique afterwards, there wasn't a great deal of detail, as you would expect. Boris Johnson apparently advised them to put a tiger in the tank. I'm not sure whether he means a military tank or a fish tank. And I'm not entirely sure how it helps either way. But perhaps this is just one of his conditions to the EU rather than a suggestion. Now, I'm going to guess that assuming it wouldn't breach animal rights laws or common decency, then maybe they'll be okay with that. But he further says that he believes a deal can be concluded by the end of July. Not entirely sure how, when there's been no progress on talks so far. And when I say no progress on talks so far, I would actually go so far as to say that there has been negative progress, because we are genuinely further behind than we were in January, because Boris Johnson has tried to renege on his commitments in the withdrawal agreement. We've actually just spent the last 4 months, every time there have been talks, there have been talking points, but ultimately what has actually been discussed, the EU have asked the UK to confirm that it intends to comply with very specific assurances, and the UK telling them, no, don't worry about it, we'll absolutely stick to our commitments. But publicly you keep saying you won't. Yeah. Be fine. Yeah. We'd quite like you to commit to that. No, we're not going to. And now more recently, of course, he's even going so far as to say he wants to chuck the whole deal in the bin. So yeah, we've actually gone backwards. But Boris Johnson says a deal can be done by the end of July. So as far as I'm concerned, this is all on him. I mean, nobody else is saying this. The EU have never said you could conclude a comprehensive trade deal in such a short time. Certainly not 6 weeks. They weren't even convinced in like 11 months. No opposition parties in the UK are saying this. Not a great many people, even within the Conservative Party, are saying that it can be done by the end of July. So this is entirely Boris Johnson. He doesn't get to blame anyone else if it doesn't happen. So let's be honest. I would say it makes no difference whether you still back Brexit or you've been paying attention. Nobody believes we're going to get a deal next month. Of course not. How could we? We won't even get one by the end of this year. So this is all just another game. This statement that you can absolutely do it is another game just to try and pin blame on the EU. But for what real purpose this time? Well, the purpose of saying we can absolutely get a deal by the end of July, because that sounds strange. Why not just carry on saying, of course we can get a deal by the end of the year? Why July specifically? Because that's even more unbelievable. And I think it's just a Scotch talks of an extension. You know, the government are arguing we don't need an extension. They've tried saying that it would be harmful to have an extension. That's only working with so many people. So they're saying there's no need for an extension. Don't sweat it, because businesses are sweating it, because we're going to have a deal done way ahead of time. No worries. So why would we need an extension? The problem is that this line of logic only works on fools, because let's say you believed that we are going to get a deal early. You would still seek an extension. Why? Because the transition period need not end on a given date. If we have a deal early, we can end the transition period early. That was the idea anyway. So, what is the upshot at this point? So the government have issued a deadline to the EU. I say with a wry smile, I'll explain why in a minute. The government have issued a deadline to the EU and told them to stop dragging their feet to the sound of Gammon's cheering. Now, fortunately, your commoner garden gammon has a very short memory, because they've already forgotten, for example, that in mid-May, a month ago, the UK gave the EU a 2-week deadline to change their attitude, or else. That was over 4 weeks ago. And has the EU changed its attitude to Boris Johnson's satisfaction? Not that you'd know by his continued moaning about them. So what was the consequence of that 2-week deadline? What did we do about it? Because they didn't change their attitude. I mean, you can imagine the scene. David Frost, our chief negotiator, goes to Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson says, right, we gave them this 2-week deadline, didn't we? Yeah. And we said 2 weeks to sort yourselves out or else. Yeah, that's what we said. Right, what happened? Nothing at all. What do you mean nothing? What? They just ignored us? Yeah. Ooh, these EU types make me so mad. Ooh, now we'll give them what for. I'm going to show them, David Frost says. So, Prime Minister, what are we going to do? What's our play now? Oh, wow. Right. I'm not messing about anymore. No more Mr. Nice Guy. They're going to miss our deadline. I'm telling you what we're going to do. We're going to issue another deadline. Okay, right. So that's the situation. We've issued them another deadline. They ignored the first deadline. We've now given... Maybe it was too short. We gave them just 2 weeks. That's not reasonable. So now we're going to give them 6 weeks. Or else. Now, bear in mind, there's 2 deadlines that have gone past because there was the deadline for the end of May to sort their attitude out or else. Well, that came and went. Nothing happened. There was also the deadline for this month, if you remember. This was a much longer deadline where Boris Johnson said that if there was no sign of a deal being possible in June, then we stop talks. So we should have stopped talks now. Now, of course, Boris Johnson's saying a deal can still be done by the end of next month. So maybe he's arguing, oh no, I absolutely believe a deal can be done. Fine. So we'll ignore that one. We'll pass that one by. So basically now the government position is, and he stated this quite clearly yesterday, that if a deal, not just progress, progress is no longer required. If there isn't a deal agreed by the end of July, they're stopping all negotiations. Okay, fine. So that's that. Not to worry, the gammons will forget about this deadline as well when it comes and goes, with the EU carrying on looking at us with a face that is at once a mixture of bemusement and exasperation, and the part of the UK population that is paying attention, turning social media off for a day or two until the collective pointing and laughing at what has now become an unfortunately sad little island erupts from around the world. So that is the Brexit situation at the moment. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.